Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a review on the Norvina Pro Pigment Palette Volume 4. I'm also going to be comparing it to the original Anastasia Norvina palette, show you guys some swatch comparisons, formula comparisons, everything like that, and then also a tutorial on this eye look using the Volume 4 palette. So if you guys want to know everything about Norvina's latest palette, then just keep on watching. Alright, so here is Norvina's latest palette with Anastasia. This is actually the only palette I own from the Norvina collaborations. This is the fourth one. I know she has a couple minis as well. I've always wanted to purchase one, but all of the other ones were really like colorful for me, and this one was definitely way more up my alley. I love the original Norvina palette. I always rave about this. I've had this for years, and if you guys can see, I'll show you actually how used up this palette is. I obviously love this palette to death, and I did see some comparisons to this palette and the Volume 4 palette. I think they're the most similar out of all of the Norvina palettes that have been released in the last year or so, just because of the shades and like a similar color story. Lots of purple, some more neutral and kind of pink tones, and that's definitely what we're getting in the Volume 4 palette. So in here we have 25 shades. It's a $60 palette compared to the original one, which is $42 and has 14 shades. The original palette has a row of shimmers and a row of mattes, which I really like. I love how many shimmers are in this palette. And then in the Volume 4 palette, we have 2 glitter shades over here. We have 9 shimmers and 13 matte shades. And then out of the whole palette, we have 16 shades that are pressed pigment. So that is definitely the biggest difference between this palette and the original Norvina palette that does not have any pressed pigments. The pressed pigments are technically not eye safe. It does actually say that on the back of the packaging. I'll read you what it says. It just says, warning, not intended for use around the immediate eye area, and it does list off the shades, and I'll go over which shades are pressed pigment in the palette once we get into all of the shade comparisons. But that is just the overall gist of the palette. More of a pressed pigment palette, some glitters, lots of different textures. Definitely some more like bolder shades, some neon shades in here as well. But very similar overall color story to the original Norvina palette. So that's kind of like the overall feel of this palette, and this is also going to be the last ABH Norvina collab for the year. So I was getting a little FOMO in not having any of the Norvina palettes, and I did want to get one eventually. This one spoke to me the most, and I was excited to get it with the similar color story and shades that I typically like to wear and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and swatch everything for you guys and show you guys comparisons of both palettes. All right, so getting into all the shades and shade comparisons in the palette. First, I'm going to swatch all the shades in the Volume 4 palette, starting with the row of the A shades, A1 through 5, and then the pressed pigments in this row are A2 and A3, those two purpley shades. And then next up we have the shades in row B, B1 through 5, with B2, B3, and B5 being the pressed pigment, all the matte shades in that row. And then next up we have row C, C1 through 5, and actually all 5 shades in this row are pressed pigments, a bunch of more purpley shades and super matte, super bold matte neon shades. And then next up we have row D, D1 through 5, with D1, D2, and D4 being the pressed pigments in this row, more of the matte shades as well. And then lastly we have row E, E1 through 5, with the pressed pigments in this row being E1, E4, and E5, all of the matte shades in row E that are a little bit bolder as well. And then we have the 2 glitter shades in row E. So we definitely have a ton of pressed pigments in this palette. Obviously there's a lot of bold matte shades. The pressed pigments are going to make them really, really stand out and get that full like neon look and less of that neutral look. So those are all of the shades in the palette. I do want to compare it to the original Norvina palette. I did find 4 shade similarities across both of these. I honestly thought I was gonna find more since these are similar color stories, but this is definitely more neons, more bold compared to the original Anastasia Norvina palette, which definitely has more neutral shades. So here are the shade comparisons between both palettes. Over here we have the original Norvina palette, and then on this side we have the Norvina 4 palette. So up top we have the shade Dreamer, that's similar to B1, and then next up we have Wild Child, which is similar to C1, and then Rose Gold is similar to B4, and Celestial is similar to C3. So definitely these 4 shades are super, super similar, and if you guys can kind of tell, especially with Rose Gold and B4, you can kind of tell that the textures are a little bit different as well. The shades themselves are super similar, but the actual textures are a bit different because you're getting so many foiled shadows in the Norvina palette, which I absolutely love. And then in the Norvina 4 palette, you're getting more just straight satin and shimmer shades. So it's not gonna be as dimensional. It's not gonna pop as much, especially the shimmers in here, compared to the original Norvina palette. I do find that these are a little bit more toned down compared to the other palette. So those are basically the differences in both palette swatches of everything. I'm gonna go right into the tutorial so you guys can see how I did this eye look today using the Norvina 4 palette. All right, so I'm gonna go in mostly with the pink and more neutral shades in the palette. I'm gonna start off with this shade B3, this like neutral, warm transition shade. And then I wanna do like a pop of neon pink, I think, in my inner corner. And this transition shade I'm using is one of the pressed pigments. So it is gonna be a little bit of a drier shade, but it is blending out totally fine, and I've used it with other looks and I find it to be the same. And then next step, I'm gonna go in with, let's do like one of the pink shades. I'm gonna go in with this shade over here. This one's the shade C5. All of the shades in the C row are all pressed pigments. I'm gonna try it out with this flat brush. I did find that some of the bolder pressed pigment shades are a little, there we go, are a little hard to blend out. Like they get a little bit patchy, but that one actually blended out super easily. Don't need to do a lot of layering there. I'm just gonna take the same shade C5 in the outer corner a little bit more, make that really, really bold. I feel like my eyes are kind of puffy. I just took an allergy pill. I've just been so swollen lately with my allergies, so hopefully the eye look turns out okay because it's already late in the day, and since I got up this morning, my eyes have just been swollen. That's been like every day, but some days it just won't go away. Yeah, that shade is actually really, really nice. I'm just packing it on because it's so bright pink. It looks a lot right now, but let's go in with a shimmer. I kind of want to do this shade A1. It's like similar to the pressed glitters, but it's actually like a shimmer. Like it looks like one of the pressed glitters, but it's a very foiled shadow. So I want to wet it. I'm just going to use the Smashbox Primer Water on my Morphe M501. No, sorry, Morphe M124. You guys know I love this brush. I have like 7 of them. It's my favorite flat brush. I'm just gonna apply that all over the lid because it's more of that like silvery shade. It almost has like a duochrome effect to it too. Gonna carry that up a little bit. Yeah, this is definitely one of the bolder shimmers in the palette. All right, yeah, I really like this color combination. And I think this is the first video I'm doing with my hair like 10 inches shorter because I announced it on my Instagram a couple weeks ago. I did take out my tape-in extensions. So this is just my natural hair length. And it's so nice to wash and dry my hair in like no time at all for the first time in a really long time. And you guys will still see me wear clip-ins in a couple of videos, but you'll probably see me wear short hair and long hair back and forth if you're wondering. If I chopped off my hair, no, I just took out my hair, took out the extensions, and I did trim it a bit on my own. It's actually super uneven, like lots of different lengths going on, but I'm just gonna let it be, grow it out a little bit, and then we'll see later this summer what I end up doing. So I'm gonna go in with this shade over here, D4. It's like a little bit of a satin purpley shade. I'm just gonna apply that to the outer corner with my finger just to transition that edge of the outer corner. I don't like a matte outer corner. I always like shimmer. And I'm also gonna take this shade A2, and I'm just gonna take that shimmer brush I used on my lid and just kind of connect it on the outer edge to make that a little bit of a more of a gradient effect. All right, so I'm just taking a clean brush and blending out some of the fallout and some of the shimmer that's like upper on my lid. And then I remembered that I do have a hot pink liner. I'm gonna try that out for the lower lash line just to make the pink stand out a little bit more. So I'm gonna go in with this electric pink gel liner. I got this in BoxyCharm, I think a month or two ago. And it's definitely gonna be super bold. But once I blend out the lower lash line, I think I'll end up liking it. All right, so this looks super, super intense. Let's calm it down a little bit. I'm gonna go in with B3, just kind of like the same shades I used on my lid. And I'm gonna carry this shade a little bit lower to soften up the pink. And then I think I'm gonna go in with this shade A3 because it's a little bit more purpley pink. I think some of the other pink shades would make like the under eye look a little bit too red, which we definitely don't want. So yeah, that definitely makes it look more pink. I'm gonna add a little bit of a shimmer in here so it's not so harsh. All right, so for this look, I am gonna throw on a wing. I think I'll just really pop out with the pink liner. Yeah, I definitely like what that looks like. I'm just gonna clean up this outer edge with the concealer in a little bit just to make it a little bit more sharp, but I definitely think the wing helps the pink pop out a little bit more. I also just threw on some mascara. I'm waiting for the glue on my lashes, and I do want to add a shadow to my inner corner. I'm gonna go in with C3. This is one of my favorites in the palettes, like this duochrome purpley shade. I'm gonna apply it to my inner corner. I did wet my brush too. I just want this shade to pop a little bit. I'm gonna carry it a little bit farther. And then I don't want it to look too deep on my inner corner, so I'm gonna go in with the shade A1 and I'm just gonna tap it on lightly so it's a little bit more an iridescent purpley look. And we have one lash down. This one is in the style Bella from Isom Lashes. This is one of my friend's new lash brands. It's a really, really pretty lash. It has a thicker band, but it feels really, really thin. All right, so that's gonna be it for this eye look. I do want to clean up a little bit of the fallout since we did work with so many shimmer shades. But that's gonna be it for the shadow. I used like 10 shades, so I don't know what more I can do. But I really like all the pink and purple shades in the palette. I think there's like a lot of bold, fun colors in here to play with for sure. I do need to still use the pressed glitters, these two over here, but I did work with some more of the neutral shades, some more of the purple shades in this palette as well, and they're pretty consistent throughout. But that's gonna be it for this look. I am gonna zoom you guys out and give you guys all of my final thoughts on this palette. All right, so here is today's final look with the palette, and I did also film another tutorial with this palette already that will be on my Instagram in the next couple days with a lot more of the purple tones, and I'll be filming more looks for my IGTV with this palette in the upcoming weeks. I do wish that the shimmers were like a little bit more defined in the eye area, but I am really working with some allergies right now that are making it a little hard to get a really defined crease, so hopefully I'll make up for that in some upcoming tutorials. But overall, I really love all the colorful shades in here. As far as the textures and the formula, I do prefer the original Norvina palette. Like, I feel like this is just one of my top 5 favorite palettes of all time, so it's really hard to beat it. If you guys are thinking like I want to get one of the Norvina palettes because I love the Anastasia palettes, just consider the pressed pigment formula. If you've worked with other pressed pigments like in the Morphe James Charles palette, some of like the Urban Decay palettes, I think even the Jacqueline Morphe palette has more pressed pigment, so they really do pop out in terms of the shade. But it can be a little bit trickier to work with just because they can be a little drier, take a little bit more wiggle room. So it's definitely less of a beginner-friendly palette. Like to me, this is definitely a beginner-friendly palette and super easy to use. Like if I only have 5 minutes to do my makeup, I definitely prefer to reach for a palette like this. I feel like it's a lot more foolproof and easy to do something more dramatic without a lot of effort with something like this. So definitely keep that in mind if you don't like to do bolder looks or spend a lot of time on your eyeshadow. So this one is definitely going to be a little less beginner friendly, but if you want bolder matte shades, you're not going to get that in the original Norvina palette. Everything's like super neutral in here. I keep thinking I'm going to drop this because it is a little heavier, but you're going to get a lot more bolder matte shades in here. I feel like this is kind of a combination of like the Norvina and the Riviera palette as well. And you're really gonna get a lot of standout matte. So if you prefer to have bold mattes, check this one out. It is definitely fun for creating bolder looks and more colorful shades and everything. So if you want more bold matte shades, you want some different textures, some glitters, definitely check out the Volume 4 palette. I think you'll get a lot of use out of this palette if you're interested in more like of an artistry palette, because it technically is an artistry palette too. So those are the differences between both. At the end of the day, I still see myself using this more, but I'm definitely going to use these in combination, and I'm definitely going to get more creativity with this palette for sure. So those are kind of the pros and cons of the new palette. Let me know if you guys ended up purchasing it. Let me know if you have any of the other Anastasia Norvina palettes, how you feel about that whole collection in general, if you're liking it. But that's gonna be everything for today's video. If you guys liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.